All right, folks, rolling in. Welcome to BCEP Info Night 2024. I'm going to assume that you can hear me. I'm going to assume that you can all see the screen. So I'm going to get things rolling. Uh, my name is Joe Preston. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the current chair of the BCEP committee. I'm also a Mazama climb leader and will be leading one of the BCEP teams this year. Um, you're going to hear from a couple other folks on the committee who are presenting tonight. Um, and yeah, so we'll run through some info and then have some questions at the end. Um, cool. All right. So um, we're going to have you go ahead and stay muted and then ask questions in the chat like folks have been doing. And then we will get questions passed to me or whoever as needed during the presentation. Check something. Thank you very much. Okay, cool. So, all right, I'll run you through kind of the Mazama's then and now. Um, we were founded in 1894 on the summit of Mount Hood. We were instrumental in creating Crater Lake National Park and have done lots of other excellent service in the outdoors and some scientific research. We are sort of co-sister organizations with the Seattle Mountaineers. We actually were all one group to begin with and then split off at one point, but we still kind of work together, share information and stuff. We also helped with the creation of Mount Baker National Park. We have a lodge that's up on Mount Hood. Those of folks who take BCEP usually get to spend the night at the lodge and have an overnight session. And then our first BCEP basic climbing school was started in 1950. And then sort of a kind of a look at us today. So we are a nonprofit. We have 3,000 plus members. Our sort of stats from last year, we had 182 climbing opportunities in 2022. 2023, sorry, last year, we had 126 opportunities. 17 of those were Y-East Mount Hood summits and 11 of those were via the South Side routes that are sort of accessible to folks after BCEP. The Mazamas at large, you know, our sort of mission at large is to inspire everyone to love and protect the mountains. You know, we believe training, experience, and skills development are fundamental to preparedness, enjoyment, and safety in the mountains. Studying, seeking, and sharing knowledge leads to an increased understanding of mountain environments. I'm going to keep rolling with BCEP today, BCEP 2024. That's going to be this year's class. We are looking at 18 teams. That's going to create opportunity for 200 plus students. Among those 18 teams, we have 30 team leaders. A lot of teams end up having two leaders, which is kind of cool because you get different perspectives and you know, it's a big job. We're all volunteers. The organization is 99% volunteer based. So that's also cool for us folks who lead BCEP teams. And then there is, each team has a varied amount of assistants, but you could kind of count on probably like a 2-to-1 ratio of assistant to student. Um, so yeah, we've got team makeup is, right around 12 students. You've got assistants, and then 1 to 2 climb leaders who are the team leads. Our sort of COVID policy is as a organization, we recommend vaccinating, and masks are voluntary at this point. You can kind of read more and stay up to date on our policies on our website. As I mentioned, I'm the current chair of the BCEP committee. Here's a list of folks, all who contribute and volunteer their time on the BCEP committee in various ways. This couldn't happen without these folks, and it's a real honor to get to work with all of them. And so this is your crew of people who help put this program on, and keep it running. So BCEP, the Basic Climbing Education Program, that's our entry program in the Mazamas. That is to provide students, the goal is to provide students with the abilities and skills to participate in our A-level and B-level climbs. An A-level climb might be something like, I think like South Sister in the summertime. B-level climb is, Mount Hood in the springtime on the south side. Just a couple examples. We also want to provide folks with the educational foundations to continue on in the Mazamas. We offer all kinds of classes, programs, for both people who participate in the BCEP program, and as you'll learn as we go on, some other opportunities for folks, who have and have not taken BCEP. So, it's really, we have a lot of offerings. And then we also want to sort of create this community. And as you encounter a lot of Mazamas, I think you'll find that the community ends up being a really big part of a lot of our journey on and off the mountains. So I'm going to pass this over to Joshua Baker, and we'll talk to you about community groups.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joshua Baker. I use he, him pronouns, and I am one of the members here of the BCEP committee. I myself did BCEP 2 years ago, and I was really grateful to be part of the queer affinity space. So here to talk a little bit more about what these spaces are and what we're offering this year. As a total this year, we'll have 5 affinity teams. Latina-X team, the She, They, Us, which is women, genderqueer, and gender nonconforming folks. As mentioned, we're also excited to offer the queer team again for folks in the greater LGBTQ plus community. And then we have a weekday affinity program. So we do know that many people have jobs or other commitments on the weekend. So we're really excited to also offer a group that only has its required meetups on Thursdays or Fridays. And then we also do have a group for folks in recovery that I'll talk about in just a minute. But first, for these 4 groups, a couple things to know is that while all students will be members of this affinity group or must be members of this affinity group to participate, not necessarily all of the climb leaders or the assistants may be part of this communities. As the Mazamas, we're continuing to grow and train more folks. So we have representatives at all levels, but we have a great group of allies who will be in some of these roles serving as assistants and climb and leaders. Secondly, we do have all these teams confirmed right now. These are dependent on interest, though. For example, if we do not have enough interest in maybe one specific team, we may have to adjust. But as you're going through your application, you'll have the opportunity to select these teams and making sure that their schedules work for you as well. And Joe, if you want to move to the next slide. And the fifth team of the recovery team is a special group with Peak Recovery. Peak Recovery is a project of the Alano Club of Portland, and it works to support people in mental health and substance use recovery by offering a lot of really awesome outdoor movement-based programming. So as part of this partnership with Peak Recovery, they are sponsoring an entire team for folks in recovery. So that means that folks on this team, one, are covered by a full sponsorship that Peak Recovery is paying. So there is no application fee for this team. But you are still required to purchase or rent your own equipment. And also what is different about this team, for all the other affinity groups and all the other BCEP teams, you do apply through the Mazama website. For this specific program, you will be applying through the Peak Recovery pnw.org website as well. And we're really excited to offer these teams. I think this is overall the 5 affinity teams were able to grow another team this year. And we do know that there's still a lot of affinity groups that aren't represented in these 5 teams. So we do know that we will work over the years, try to expand the number of teams that we offer to create these spaces in the outdoors. And I think that's it for me. So I will turn it back over to the team in the next slides.
Thanks, Joshua. So class outline and requirements is going to be Elisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elisa. I took BCEP last year, and Joe is one of my team leaders, and I've joined the BCEP committee this year. Really excited to talk about the details of what BCEP looks like. It was such a fantastic experience when I took it last year, and something that I just can't say enough good things about. But the learning opportunities that you'll have in BCEP includes online modules and also breakout sessions. Though that's when your team gets together and goes over the material that you covered in those online modules and talks about, the details of different topics. There's also team hikes where your team will get together and do a training hike. Technical sessions, I'll talk about those in a little more detail in a second. And then there's also an online test and a practical test at the end of the course that's required for graduation. And the online test and the practical test are really your setup for success for those. It's nothing that I would be stressed about. It's to go over the material that you learn throughout the course and to make sure you have the skills to be able to safely go on A and B level climbs at the end of the course. So really your setup for success for those tests. Next slide. So the class is 8 weeks. The team start dates for this year, they're staggered. So they'll start between February 28th and March 21st, depending on which team you're on, and they'll end between April 25th and May 12th. There are 4 mandatory technical sessions as part of the course. The MMC Intro Climbing Skills session, that takes place in the Mazama Center. It's like an indoor rock gym environment where you'll get hands-on instruction on how to do basic rock climbing skills and rappelling skills. There's also a snow session or rock skills session. Depending on your particular group, you'll either do snow or rock first. That takes place outdoors. We'll go over the details of that in a little bit as well. So you'll have each of one of those sessions, and then you'll have a second MMC climbing skills review session that happens at the end. That's a good chance to practice all those practical skills before the test. Next slide. So the weekly lectures and breakout sessions, there is a website that contains just an enormous amount of valuable information that has learning modules. And so the way it works is your group will be assigned a weekly set of learning modules that you'll go over on your own. That's pre-recorded lectures and reading. You watch that on your own schedule, and then you'll get together for your weekly breakout session with your team. And that's a chance to review that material, go over the lecture contents, and then also cover any additional topics that your team leaders may want to review. And then, that also gives you a time to plan upcoming hikes and technical sessions. Often we'd use, that time to go over, what to expect with the upcoming technical session or upcoming hike, plan a carpool, get ready for that activity that we were going to do together as a team. And I don't think there's a slide specifically that goes over the different content of the learning modules, but just to give you an example, there'll be content like navigation, avalanche safety, nutrition, how to, appropriately layer clothing while hiking. So really wide variety of material that's incredibly valuable. Next slide. Team hikes. This was actually one of my favorite parts of BCEP. I loved going on team hikes. There'll be a total, most teams will have a total of 7 hikes. It's mandatory to attend at least 3. And it's just the best hiking locations throughout the Pacific Northwest. Most of our hikes were in the gorge. We did hikes like Dog Mountain, Indian Point. And, the great opportunity for team bonding, but also it's really, really good training to get into good physical shape so that by the time you're done with the course, you'll be ready to take on some of these A and B level climbs. I do have to say I was a little bit worried when I started BCEP because I didn't feel like my cardiovascular health was in the best shape. I was worried I would be the slowest one on my team and I would hold everyone back. But that was not at all the case. I think that, our hikes went at a very nice, steady pace. And it was just an incredibly enjoyable experience to do these team hikes with my group. The schedule for those will be based on your team specific schedule. My team, all of our hikes were on the weekend. If you're in the weekday affinity team, they try to schedule those during the week. Next slide. And then the technical session. So I talked about these a little bit, but the MMC practical rock session, this is the one that'll take place at the Mazama Center. You'll have 2 of these. So one towards the beginning of the course and one towards the end of the course. And this goes over, all the skills you need to be able to do alpine climbing and as a climber. So you're not going to be lead climbing, like you're not going to be placing your own gear or protection, but you will learn skills like learning how to tie in on a figure 8 knot to your harness. You'll learn how to belay, so skills that you would need to climb, like in a rock climbing gym, for example. And then the rappelling skills were also very, very valuable. And you can, I don't know if we have a picture of someone. No, it looks like I was looking at the middle picture, but it looks like that person is just being lowered off. But that's also, if you're at the top of the climb and you want to come down safely, that's one of the ways to be able to come down. It's a very valuable skill to learn. So being able to do that first in the Mazama Center in a controlled environment, I felt like it set us up really well to then go out and do our outdoor rock climbing session at Horse Thief Butte. That's a session that it is done. Usually most teams will do it over 2 days and we'll actually camp for that weekend, which is also a fun experience. But the Horse Thief Butte rock climbing session teaches you all of those skills in the actual outdoors and being able to climb outdoors. It's a very, very good experience. Let's see. And, I had come into the course with a little bit of rock climbing experience, but for some of the people in my group, it was their first time climbing outside. And then the Timberline Snow session, that takes place at Timberline Lodge. I had come in with no snow experience. I hardly knew what snow was. So that was just really a great chance for me you'll learn how to walk in crampons, use an ice axe, how to stop yourself if you've fallen and you're sliding down the mountain. How do you stop yourself and do self-arrest with your ice axe to keep from Sliding down, you'll learn about avalanche safety. So it's a very important technical session and just so many valuable skills. Next slide. And then the graduation requirements. So in order to graduate, you'll need to read through all the online learning modules and watch the videos, attend all of the weekly breakout sessions with your group, attend at least a minimum of 3 team hikes, participate in all 4 of the technical sessions, and pass the online and practical tests. And so, it is a big time commitment. You're going to be very, very busy for these 8 weeks. You're going to have that weekly in-person breakout session. Almost every weekend, there's going to be either a team hike, a practical session or technical session. And so it really is a big time commitment. I think it's something to think about if you're, on the fence about whether or not to take the course. There's not a lot of wiggle room for missing things because the schedule is pretty tight. There's a lot that's packed into those 8 weeks. Next slide. And I'm also covering costs, so I'll move on to talk about the cost of the course. So the tuition. So for Mazama members, tuition is $575 and it's $700 for non-members. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I believe a Mazama's membership is $88 with a $25 initiation fee. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, it should be right around the same. The difference is about the cost of a membership. I mean,
That was my understanding as well. And then in terms of, oh, sorry. In terms of other costs, there's an optional textbook. You don't need to buy it. A lot of the content is from that book is covered in the modules. But if you want to do additional reading, I own a copy of it. It's called Mountaineering, Freedom of the Hills. I think it's a very helpful resource. And then I'll go over the gear that's required. And then transportation, carpooling is encouraged. We usually would set up a carpool for our group that help cut down on costs like gas. Next slide. Financial aid. So we do offer limited amounts of financial aid to allow students to participate who will not be able to do so without financial assistance. So financial aid is provided for course tuition only. The Mazamas may cover up to 75% of the tuition based on your ability to pay. And the Mazamas will contact you with the amount of financial aid award prior to acceptance into BCEP. And there are details about how to apply for financial aid in the application itself. And if you have questions, please reach out to help@mazamas.org, or you can see more information on the website if you go to mazamas.org/scholarships. Next slide. So required personal gear. These are all very important items that you need to have for yourself in order to take the course. You don't need to go out and buy them now. Many of my teammates in my group, waited to buy these until after the course started. And I think that could actually be very helpful because you can ask people, which climbing harness do you think would be the best for me? Or, which brand should I be looking into? What's a good low cost option? You can ask your team leaders about that once the course gets started. So you don't need to purchase anything until after you're already enrolled in the course and that's gotten started. Because your team leaders can provide some guidance around this. However, things to keep in mind that you'll need to have are a climbing harness, climbing helmet, a belay device, carabiners, nylon runners so that you can safely, tie yourself in, accessory cord, hiking boots, a compass, a headlamp, and a backpack. And the total cost can range pretty widely. Probably the lower end, if you bought everything new, would be around $500. And for some of these things like a climbing harness and safety gear, I would recommend buying that new rather than used. Other things, like for example, a backpack or a headlamp, you may be able to get away with buying some used gear there. But safety gear, I'd really try to buy new. So probably $500 on the lower end, up to, if you're buying top of the line for everything, it can get quite expensive, up to about $1,000. Next slide. In addition to that, required apparel. So it's important that you have adequate clothing and equipment to keep yourself safe and comfortable during the outside components of the course, especially because the course runs at the end of winter and into the early spring. Often we were in the snow, even just with our training hikes. And so it's really important that you have rain protection, like a raincoat, rain pants, adequate base layers and mid layers, hat, gloves, and mittens, eyewear like sunglasses or glacier goggles, and also trekking poles. Um, you can get away with buying a number of these things that are reduced cost or used as opposed to the safety equipment for climbing. There's a lot more flexibility here. We tried to get a good cost estimate of if someone had to buy all of these things new, how much would it cost? Probably on the lower end, $250, and at the upper end, if you're getting kind of the nicest version of everything, it could add up to a little more than $1,000. There are a lot of good bargain spots to look for lower cost apparel, like Next Adventure, REI Resupply, which just opened up in Clackamas, thrift stores. If you can get a shopping pass to the Columbia employee store, that's another great place that you can get discount apparel. So all things to look out for if you're looking for lower cost apparel. Next slide. And then additional gear. So this gear is required for the Timberline snow session only. So just for that one day, it's strongly encouraged that students rent this gear because it is much, much, much less expensive to rent than it is to buy. And when I did my snow session, I rented all of this gear because I wasn't sure, I wanted to get a sense of how to use it. Did I like the brand that I rented, and do a lot more research before I later went out and bought this equipment. So you will need an ice axe, mountaineering boots, and crampons just for that snow session. And as you can see, the 2-day rental cost for all of that equipment, it's not too bad, probably about $35 to $40. If you do choose to rent gear, there's really good options at the Mountain Shop. That's where I ended up renting my gear, Next Adventure, and then REI also rents gear. Next slide. And then another good reason to wait to buy gear until after your course starts is that the Mountain Shop will also offer a BCEP package. So if you'd like to purchase your required personal gear as a package, the Mazamas have partnered with the Mountain Shop to provide BCEP students with a discounted rate on a package that includes all of the required gear that you'll need for BCEP. And it's a 15% discount for BCEP students. We'll have details for this package upon acceptance to the course. Next slide. And I'll pass it back to Joe.
Cool. Thank you, Lisa. All right, I will run you through the last section here before we get to opening up for more questions. But the application process. So some important dates for you. January 18th, the application portal opens at 6 a.m. And I mentioned this into the chat, but I'll say it here as well that we will also be listing all the required dates for every team in the application. So you can check each, you essentially select the teams that work with your schedule. So that's kind of a cool thing there. And then we will close that portal at midnight on January 25th. The application is kind of, basic information. Like I said, the team schedules, all those required dates. There's a few DEI kind of questions and, prior experience, things like that. But it's pretty basic information, and pretty straightforward. And, as we've said, I think that your availability, it's super important that, you try at least and make the dates that are the required dates. We can work with folks in extenuating circumstances, but, it's like Elisa said, it's an involved program. It takes a lot of time. And so, uh, do your best there. Our selection process, excuse me, we typically receive more applications for the course than our capacity. And that's just based on kind of how many available climb leaders can lead teams and things like that. We do give priority to certain folks, based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you have volunteered with the Mazamas or done other sort of stewardship, there's opportunity to mention that on the application. And if you've applied in previous years, then you kind of get bumped up to the front. Not kind of, you do. So that's another bonus there if you've applied in the past. And then all the other spaces sort of get filled through like a randomized selection, and then they get kind of manually evened out, things like pacing and age, stuff like that. Again, a couple more dates for you. The 31st is when the student notification of financial aid is. And then Friday, February 9th will be the student acceptance notification date. All right, so I want to, I think I've got Scott here. Sorry. We had someone from Trail Trips Committee who was going to chat. Let's see. Might be different. Scott. Anyway, okay. Well, I can take this. So we have some other opportunities and some things we'd like to kind of make sure you're aware of. One of the other committees, there are many various committees in the Mazamas. The Trail Trips Committee, who handles all the hikes, which, by the way, hikes are now free for everyone. You don't have to be a member of the Mazamas, so check those out on our calendar. But the Trail Trips Committee is putting on specific pre-BCEP conditioning hikes, sort of aimed at getting you even more in mountain shapes. So check our mazamas.org/calendar. We have all details and stuff for that. Another opportunity that isn't necessarily a one-to-one with BCEP, but it is an opportunity if you're not accepted into BCEP, and or you have some previous sort of hiking and backpacking experience. We have a new course called the Intro to Alpine Climbing. It does currently kind of have very limited availability. It's, as it continues to grow, you can see the URL there, mazamas.org/IAC, for more details about that. But again, we do encourage folks to apply for BCEP, and it's not, folks applying to Intro to Alpine Climbing do need to have that kind of little bit of experience and a little bit more background in hiking and backpacking, that kind of thing. And then another great opportunity for folks, again, always check our calendar, mazamas.org/calendar. Climb leader John Godino and Andy Nutbrock. John Godino, is, you may know from the Alpine Savvy website and Instagram accounts. They are running Sunday skill builder sessions for folks. There's been things like sport anchors, Jim DeCraig, crevasse rescue, all kinds of cool opportunities. So check that out, and always make sure to check out Alpine Savvy for other, details, mountain resources, things like that. So, without further ado, we can open it up for questions. Which we've got here in the chat. So I can start tackling some of these live. If you get a membership and, oh, hold on, answer this live. If you get a membership and get declined on your application, can you request a refund, drop the membership? So that would be if you signed up for paid membership ahead of submitting your BCEP application and then did not get into BCEP. I don't know if that would fall under our refund policies. I'm sure those refund policies are listed on our website, mazamas.org. If they're not, you could hit up help@mazamas.org for assistance on that. One second. So, looks like I think the application portal sounds like it actually may be open now. So you can, if it's open, feel free to start filling it out and submitting. It is ready to go. So yeah, generally we have it set to open at that 6 a.m. time, but we've already got it set up. So happy days for everyone. If you experience an injury or a health event during the course and can't participate in the hikes, is there any opportunity to complete the course in a later year? Yeah, that has happened in the past where if something extenuating circumstance happens to someone and they're unable to finish the course, they usually will get that kind of priority placement in the years down the road whenever they next apply. You know, and if it's just one session, then sometimes that can even just be made up singularly. It's sort of on a case by case basis. Sorry, getting through the questions here. My partner and I are looking to do the BCEP course together. If only one of us were to be accepted to the program, is there an option to step back without financial penalty? Yes. So both, I will say, there is also an option on the application to mention that you're applying with a partner, or a friend or something, or even if you have a specific leader that you want to try to get placed with. Okay, I'm wondering if this course is appropriate for me versus IAC or ICS. I have basic snow travel and rock climbing experience, and I've read Freedom of the Hills book. However, I have no formal training and eager to learn more. Has done some climbing and such, both rock and snow. So that tends to make me think that you're, kind of that type of resume and skill set is probably more appropriate for IAC. Not to say that you wouldn't learn and have a good time in basic climbing program, but if you already have that kind of experience, then that could be a good program for you. However, there have been folks in the past who have kind of waited for that opportunity and didn't apply for BCEP and then maybe didn't get into IAC, and then so you have to kind of wait that next year. So just to kind of give you a heads up on that as well. And that's Intro to Alpine Climbing as far as the acronym there. Oh, and that apparently the mazamas.org/IAC URL isn't working at the moment. So we'll check in on that um, and get back to you. So yeah, check back on that. Uh, You maybe so someone's asking about altering their application after they've already submitted it. I don't know if you can do that, but if you needed to, you can go ahead and submit a second application. Um, though go ahead and give it there might be a way to edit it. I'm not 100% sure on that, to be honest with you. Um, No, we don't have an, is there an application fee? And no, we don't have an application fee. It's just the cost, the total tuition cost, or the member cost or the non-member cost.
And I think this might answer some other questions too. I wasn't,
Sure.
I remember from last year, I wasn't required to pay the tuition until I was already accepted to the course.
Yeah, great point too. Yeah, you don't actually get charged until you're accepted. So you can apply for free essentially, and then if you're not accepted, you don't get charged. And someone's asking about breakout sessions. Those are listed on the application as well for each of the teams. So you can check those out and make sure they work with your schedule. They're at various places and times. Okay, cool. Getting through here. Um, Yep, a lot of interest in intro to alpine climbing. So the other thing you can do is, and I'll put this in the chat here, is there should be an email address. And yeah, you can check out mazamas.org/BCEP for the application. There's a financial aid question. So that happens before the final student selection happens. So you're kind of contacted and you work with staff on that ahead of time. Is there an advantage to applying early in the application window? And no, it's just all, once they're in, it's not a first come, first serve kind of thing. What's the application period for the intro to alpine climbing course? I'm not 100% sure on that, but it usually happens in towards like the end, the BCEP, I think, kind of in the springtime. Can you describe the weekend commitments a bit more? Are they usually Saturdays, Sundays, all day? So yeah, for the majority of the teams, I would say it's usually one weekend day a week for those 8 weeks, and it's the better part of a day. So I wouldn't plan a whole lot around that, but you will get more detailed times as once you're accepted and once you get contact with the leaders and things. But I do know in some cases there are events, on both weekend days. You may have a hike and a technical session. Um, there's a follow-up question about it, the injury. If you have an injury or health event, would you have to pay for the course again? And depending, I think, on how much of the course you took, and it would really be a case by case basis. But I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think you would have to. The course outline is available in the application, so it outlines all the teams and the required dates for those teams. There may be some things outside of those required dates once you're accepted. Typically, how many more applications than spots do we have? It can vary year to year. Last year was a year where we didn't have to turn anyone away. Everyone was accepted because we had space for everyone that applied. In years past, there have been, unfortunately, upwards of 100 people who have maybe been turned away and had to come back. And it just sort of depends on the how much people want to take the class and how much availability you have. Um, Again, I'm sorry that webpage, the intro to alpine climbing page is down. I'm not sure what's happening there. What is that at one point? What is the average workload during the weekdays and when your in-person breakout sessions usually scheduled? So each team has a different, it just depends team by team basis on what night the breakouts are. Those are listed on the application. And then the average workload, there's some reading, watching videos, and I would say, a few hours a week of practice outside of, your scheduled breakout sessions, things like that. Start getting through all these here. Go for a drink of water. Excuse me. All right. Um, Sorry, just kind of similar questions here. Okay, looks like some folks are figuring out the AAC thing, and then a decent amount hiking, but done very little climbing. Conditioning to prepare for the. Do we have recommendations for the conditioning to prepare for the climbing portion of BCEP? I would say that the hiking and carrying a pack, that kind of stuff. If you're able to do that, then the climbing that we do is less strenuous than climbing at a climbing gym, I would say. So it's pretty low on the grade scale of things, more focusing on the skills kind of around it um, than putting folks in higher grade circumstances. Okay, question about so if we put our preference for our dates on the application, does that limit our potential for acceptance? Or is it better to be available for all the dates possible? And yeah, I would say the latter is true. If the more you're available, the more teams you're available for, that tends to be the sort of crux of this whole thing is people's availability for those required dates. So the more teams and availability you have, that does kind of give you a little bit of an edge as far as like more opportunity to be randomly placed on the team, outside of any of those kind of um, other bonus uh, qualities that we give folks. What's the next course after BCEP? Most, I would say probably like 99% of folks would then take uh, what's called our intermediate climbing school. Would they apply for that? Um, so sorry, there's a lot of action in the chat here, stuff bouncing around. Yeah, so the next course is ICS, and you would not the IACE, the intro to alpine climbing course, is going to get you the same outcome as BCEP, so you wouldn't necessarily need to take that after BCEP. Holy moly. Okay. Uh, let's see. Um, sorry, just going through here. This up. So question, can you sign up for membership after you get accepted into the program? Or do you need the membership to be active in order to get the lower tier pricing? And yeah, you need if you want to get the lower tier, the membership pricing, you do need to have an active membership. Early on, there was various types of teams described, and one was for genderqueer people and women. Are there multiple teams of these kinds, or just one that you must work around? And yes, currently, any of those affinity teams, there would be just the uh, one team opportunity. Um, we have another program called FM 101, and someone is asking what sorry, can't find where that went. Anyway, someone was asking about FM 101. That's our family mountaineering. That's a different program. You'll have to check out the info on that. I'm not sure. Some of this, sorry. Um, could you provide an estimate to the amount of time spent midweek? That again depends on each of the teams. You're going to have to check out each of those sets of the schedule and see what works with your schedule. It can vary, but yeah, you will probably have a week. I would say 99 to 100% chance you're going to have a weeknight breakout session. So there will be at least something in the evening that you'll have to attend, and then some practice and reading around that. Some folks are mentioning that the application might already be open. If it is, go ahead and apply. If not, wait for that date, January 17th. I don't have any control over that. So. A lot of questions about schedules specific to like the weeknight team and things like that. Check the application. All of the team's information is on there for you. It's been painstakingly gone through and double checked. So give that a look. There's a question, do we have a wait list? Yes, so there is also a wait list that comes into play. Sometimes folks get accepted and then realize they can't, for whatever reason, can't make it. And yeah, so we do end up pulling quite a few people from wait lists from time to time. Yep. Check the chat for a fresh link on that intro to alpine climbing information. Besides discounts, what are other benefits of a Mazama membership? Well, you have to be a Mazama member to go on any of our climbs. So that's an awesome benefit. You do get discounts, but then you also get rescue insurance. And I would say, as cheesy as it may sound, you do get to be part of this really awesome community. And that's coming from someone who wasn't necessarily looking for that. And it's been a great surprise and awesome experience for me personally. No tips for the application, just fill it out to the best of your ability. There's really not a lot of gaming the system you can do. It's just kind of is what it is. Someone's asking about the rock the field session, like how high you have to climb up. And it's I think maybe I don't know, around 30 feet to 40 feet, maybe something like that. But it's all done in a progression. You're not just like dropped into that. So leaders will teach you, and get you comfortable on various terrain before actually putting you on rock. Um, and I was like that too. I hadn't done any rock climbing at all before taking the BCEP course. The Mazama center rock wall that we have was my first time rock climbing. So, they we have it set up in such a way that it's a progression for folks.
So would you mind if I jumped in? I think I can answer
Please do.
all questions. I think there's a lot of questions about whether or not the BCEP course is the right level for some people who may have some prior experience either with rock climbing.
Yeah, like specific things.
Yeah, or with snow. And I guess I just wanted to say, I came into the course with quite a bit of rock climbing experience and no snow experience. And I think even with having that prior rock climbing experience, one of the things that I got out of BCEP was, honing the skills to the ability where I felt comfortable being able to teach other people those skills, because it really gave me a framework for how to educate people on these skills. And so even if you do have some prior experience with rappelling, climbing outdoors, I think that, really depends what you're looking to get out of the course. I think even, having come in with quite a bit of prior experience in one area and not another, I still think I got quite a lot out of just learning a framework for how to provide that type of education for others, so I can keep my friends safe when we are going out and climbing. So I think it really kind of depends on your individual situation and what you're hoping to get out of the experience. But if even if you do have some prior experience, some of it might be a little bit repetitive from things you've learned before. But I still think there's a lot to learn, either about rock climbing or um, alpine, snow glacier travel from taking the course. So I hope
Cool.
that answered some of the questions. And there's a really wide variety of experiences. I know someone had asked about like never having climbed outside before. There were people in my group who had never climbed outside before. And so there's a really wide range of experience levels when people come in.
Okay. Um, cool. Sorry, trying to get through more of the questions here.
I think there's a number of questions about being able to see the schedule before the application opens, but I don't know if that's going to be available, or if people will just have to when they log into the application, they'll be able to see all the schedules to pick from. Because certainly you'll be able to see all of the dates when you're actually going through and doing the application, because you'll have to pick the teams that fit with your schedule. I just don't know if that'll be available in advance of the 17th.
We will have a recording of this available on the URL here, mazamas.org/BCEP. Um, so that'll, as soon as that should be up in the next day or so. Yes, the Mazama's membership is an annual payment or due.
And I see some questions about required dates too, and what people can see as required dates right now on the BCEP multi, or on the app. Sort of when you go to the application page, you can't actually register. But if you go through, it says like, I just want to make it clear, it says like BCEP team 1 or 2, and it has a whole bunch of listed upcoming activities. Those include a mix of required dates and a mix of not required dates for some of those teams. So do wait, I think, until the application is open, and the dates that we list there will be the very much required dates for each one of those teams.
After BCEP, will I have opportunities to be accepted to A and B climbs? Yes, you will. And you will also have opportunity to be accepted to climbs beyond those grades as well. So C climbs uh, and such. It's not just limited to A and B climbs, but sort of depended on a climb by climb basis. We do offer the opportunity to gain our badges if you have a similar experience through other organizations. But you'll have to email help@mazamas.org to get that rolling. I'm gonna say, so we're still getting questions about the portal and opening up and stuff. January 17th, I would, if you're having any trouble, questions, that's the date that it is for sure gonna work. So if it were me, I would probably wait until then. You can get accepted to different climbs before taking the program, but it just would depend on your experience level and the climb specifically. Someone's asking, can you do A and B climbs if not accepted? Probably, again, it's on a case-by-case basis, and it would depend on your skill level and prior experience. There is a place on the application for if you have a leader who's recommended by somebody. Yeah, you're good there. Is there any way to see the dates before the application opens? Not really. The best way to see those dates is going to be on the application. Can't really speak to everybody's specific resumes and experience, but I would say again, BCEP is a beginner course. Intro to Alpine Climbing is a different course, and also you need to have prior much more experience than with BCEP to get in. And one last when assessing my personal fitness level for the course, is there anything outside of the Dog Mountain climb recommendation I could try? Not really. I mean, that's kind of the base level for your fitness. But you could essentially, I mean, you could essentially do stuff that's the same elevation, uh, that kind of thing. Do you offer a BCEP qualifier exam? No, I don't believe we do.
I would say the only equivalent would be there are some folks who don't take BCEP but have a lot of prior experience and then apply directly into the intermediate climbing school.
True. Yeah, you can, that is an option. Once you pass the BCEP course, is it recognized in other organizations such as the Mountaineers? Um, uh, as Mazama members, I do believe we have the opportunity to climb occasionally with the Mountaineers. So yes, and I do know that Mountaineers have climbed and do climb with Mazamas as well. Can you sign up for the membership after you get accepted into the program, or do you need the membership to be active to get the lower pricing? Yeah, you do need to be a member to get the member pricing. Cool. All right. Unless there are any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and wind this down, get everybody out of here. Appreciate everyone's time. Again, the best place for info, mazamas.org/BCEP. There's going to be a requestion there's going to be a recording. Going to be a recording of this up there, and and yeah, you can check that out. Appreciate it. Get out of here. All right. Take it easy, everybody.